What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Money Down Pod. You are watching or listening us. That is my guy, Sean White at Dumpster Fire Fan, myself at Kayvon_sports. You can see us on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast version, we appreciate you as well. Go ahead and like and subscribe to the video, please. It helps us out a lot. We appreciate all of your support. So, Sean, this was maybe the best, 72 hours, 48 hours of football we've seen in a long time. I mean, this was rivalry weekend in college football to its T. There's so much that happened in the NFL that we're going to get into in a whole other video. Sports are rocking right now, especially in the football world of things. And we're gonna because so much happened in college football, we're going to make this a strictly college football podcast. We're going to talk about everything that happened in the rivalry games, including Ohio State, Michigan, including Clemson, South Carolina. We're going to talk about Caleb Williams. And then we're going to go on a little tour of the coaching candidates and what's going on. And then we're going to finish the talk out with college football playoff scenarios now that we are 1 week away from getting the Final Four officially in. So, Sean, let's start with the biggest game that happened on Saturday. It's obviously the game that got everybody talking. It's obviously the biggest surprise of the weekend. I think majority of people thought Ohio State was going to win. Majority of people thought Ohio State was going to win big. Some people thought Michigan was going to win, but I don't think anybody, except, the most hardcore Michigan fan ever, thought they were going to win worse than they won last year in Michigan. There's so many ways that we're going to talk about this, Sean. And I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. But I just want to start off by saying this. Michigan, this to me is a way worse loss to Ohio State than it was last year, because last year Michigan was just more physical. And yeah, they were more physical this year too and all that stuff, but they just ran the ball down their throat. And Ohio State panicked. They went and got Jim Knowles and all that stuff. This time, Michigan stepped on the field, looked across Ohio State and said, I know you got all those shiny 5-star toys. We've got a couple. We don't have anywhere as near as you guys. But we're literally going to take your game plan and we're going to execute it 10 times better than you. And our quarterback's going to be better than your shiny, supposedly amazing quarterback, which you've been hearing on this show from the guy to the right of me all season long, that maybe he's not as great of a quarterback as everybody has been saying, which I'm sure he's going to get to that in a minute. They pounded them with their own game plan, Sean. It's a phenomenal job by Jim Harbaugh. My goodness, is he showing what type of coach he is. It's a terrible job by Ryan Day. It's a terrible job by CJ Stroud. And there is now panic in Ohio. There is panic in Ohio State that things are wrong and that maybe they have built their program wrong. As far as saying, you might think I'm crazy. You have all these 5-star players and everything. But I think that they're sitting there right now saying, we've built our program wrong compared to how Michigan has built it. That's my first takeaway. Where do you want to go with this from here?
Yeah, that was just a crazy game plan execution on Michigan's part, and it was a coaching clinic by Harbaugh. Just out-coached Ryan Day from the get-go on it. They play way more physical than Ohio State, and the way Ohio State's built their team, they're just not that Urban Meyer team anymore, man. No. That Urban Meyer team was dominated by defenders. You saw corners, defensive,
all over the NFL,
linebackers just drafted in the top 7 rounds, and then they have skill position people, a few offensive linemen here and there, and their quarterback just never had to do much because the system kind of lends itself to quarterback play being that way. They were kind of carried by Zeke, and then they had the defense. And then they just run over people that way, and the quarterback wouldn't have much to do. This team now is built straight up on passing. That's all it's built on. That's the one thing that Ohio State's elite at now. It's just passing, period. They don't block super well up front. They damn sure don't play defense. They're not physical at all. They're literally carried by wide receivers, which if you look in the NFL, every Ohio State receiver goes in there, they're dominant. They're all really good, best players out there. But that's all they can do. Unless Marvin Harrison Jr. is pulling off some amazing game, they're not winning. Like, that's just how it goes. And Jim Harbaugh's kind of seized on that. You can see how they play them. They step on the field and immediately just punch them in the mouth constantly. That's just what Michigan does. And that's credit to Harbaugh on that part. I don't know what Ryan Day is going to do here really to fix that. because it's not like he's going to be some big time defensive recruiter now. He hasn't recruited defense well the whole time he's there. That doesn't change over time. You really have to trust your defensive guy to recruit like that. And as good as Knowles is schematically, it's not like he was recruiting top 5-star players at Oklahoma State either. So he's not used to recruiting these SEC defensive guys. It's not a thing that he does. So Brian Day's getting some really big heat, and he deserves it. Honestly, the whole Big Ten's overrated. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
It's an overrated conference, and the winner of it's obviously going to make the playoff. Let's be real. As long as Michigan doesn't somehow lose to Purdue, they're in. It's really that Ohio State conversation that we'll get to later on that I don't buy, because really it's just a weak conference in general. And I didn't see Michigan blowing them out. I thought it would be a close game just because I don't buy Stroud in big spots. And I've been on that for this whole time. I know you brought it up in the open, so I need to hit on it even more. I don't buy Stroud as an NFL top flight quarterback prospect at all. He's going to go in the first round. I don't buy him as a franchise guy because under pressure, I don't think he can move that well. I don't think he can throw as accurately that well, and he's throwing to the best of the best guys. I mean, if you want to do a comparison, look at Tua and Mac Jones. That's the closest comparison you can go with. Stroud is the worst athlete out of those three, and that's saying something because Mac isn't that athlete either. The other thing is he throws an accurate ball. He's not nearly as decisive and accurate as Tua is, even at the NFL level that you can see. And while Mac might not have the physical capabilities that Stroud does, because Stroud probably has a stronger arm, he's got the more athletic ability, and his mind is better up there coming out than Stroud will be too. Even though Stroud does understand offenses, he's just in that Ohio State system where Bam was playing the pro style with Bill O'Brien. I think Stroud failed right here. You know Stroud's got to be feeling bad about that too, because that's 2 losses to Michigan in both his starts. That doesn't happen very often if you're Ohio State, and it damn sure hasn't happened in the last 20-some years. Not since Jim Tressel took over that program. I think Ohio State fans are panicking right now, and they really should, because I think going forward, unless they can find a way to get more physical, which I don't see a way they can, Michigan's going to keep punching them in the mouth every time they play them, because that's the type of program Harbaugh's built up at every single place he's been at. Congrats to Michigan for sticking it out with Jim, and I know he probably bent y'all over a little bit on that contract after y'all dissed him a little bit after last year. But it's going to be worth every penny, because I think he's going to dominate this matchup going forward. I don't really see a way Ryan Day is going to out-recruit and be able to out-physical Harbaugh if we're moving forward right here. I think Jim's got a hold on the rivalry.
Well, if that's the case, then Ryan Day's not going to be the head coach there very long, because there's 3 things that Ohio State fans and the Ohio State program itself wants and expects every single year, and they should, being the Ohio State University. 1 is win a national title. 2, or you should put it in this order. 1 is beat Michigan. 2 is win the Big Ten. 3 is win a national title. The fans are realistic enough and okay with not getting that 3rd one done as long as you beat Michigan and win the Big Ten. Now, obviously, they want the title, but it's okay with it. Now we're going on 2 years in a row, Sean, where they're not going to accomplish one of those 3 things. One of those 3 things. And I get it. Ryan Day's a good coach. He's lost like 5 games in his whole career. I get all of that stuff. But think about the situation that Ohio State was in. Jim Harbaugh was literally trying to get the Vikings job this summer. He wasn't even there for National Signing Day. He wasn't even paying attention to Michigan during National Signing Day. He was trying to get the Vikings job. He lost both of his coordinators. Ohio State's over here with a massive NIL collective, talking about how you need like $16 million to run a program. Everything's going great for them. The head coach of Michigan's not even paying attention during National Signing Day. He didn't even want to stay at Michigan. And he loses both coordinators, and he still comes into Ohio State and kicks the living crap out of you. It was set up perfectly for Ohio State to dominate this matchup. And the last thing that they did was even get close to dominating that matchup. That's a big, big concern for Ohio State and Ohio State fans. And I think you're right, man. I think that while it's awesome to have 5-star players. It's great. It really is. But I think Michigan is showing you that it's okay to not have all these amazing toys on the outside and to not have all of these super flashy guys. and you can win in another way. Like, think about it at halftime. At halftime, it was a close game. It was 20 to, I think, 17 or something like that. I think it was Ohio State was winning. It was 20 to 17 at halftime. I think Michigan barely ran the ball. I think they were averaging like 2 yards per carry. Everything looked good. Ryan Day made 0 adjustments. Jim Harbaugh went in there and realized, man, they are just saying, throw the ball. Throw the ball. J.J. McCarthy, go out there and throw the ball. And that's what he did. And they won that way. And I think you hit on something really interesting, because I think all of college football is going this way or needs to go this way. And that is the idea of having a dual quarterback. Sean, think about how many times in this game Ohio State got down into the red zone and couldn't convert. If C.J. Stroud could have just ran and picked up first downs, got into the end zone with his legs like Fields used to do, like Cardell Jones used to do, like Dwayne Haskins used to do, even though those guys weren't very mobile, they were more mobile than C.J. Stroud. I mean, Dwayne Haskins wasn't very mobile at all, but he even moved a little bit better than C.J. Stroud. If C.J. Stroud could move, maybe they pick up a couple of those touchdowns. Because he can't move, it changes everything, and it's an issue. Now, the one thing that I will say, and this is looking ahead, Ohio State does have a guy coming in 2024, a quarterback that has like Caleb Williams type potential from these recruiters. I can't ever say his name right. Maybe you can. It's like Rhule or something.
Yeah, that's not what I'm prepared to try to pronounce today.
I know. I feel bad, and I'll get it down right as we talk to him more. But he is projected as a dual threat, amazing quarterback, and maybe that will be the secret. But I think even then, Ryan Day's got to become a better in-game coach, Sean. We were texting about it. He for as great of a passing game as they have, it's not very complex. It's just throw the ball and let these amazing receivers do the thing. He's not scheming these guys open like you see Lincoln Riley do, like you see Josh Heupel do. He's not scheming those guys open. It's very simple forms and making sure those 5-star guys go and do their job. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Their schematics are not very complicated, but it has been what's worked in the Urban Meyer tree for all those years. But again, Urban's teams brought a physicality that you're not seeing with these teams. They brought a defensive presence. You couldn't run the ball on these Urban Meyer teams, so they got the ball back to their offense to go and score like that. Now you're talking about the dual threat. That's great. It might open the offense up enough. Are they going to get the ball enough possessions? Because they're just getting ran on constantly. They're just not getting the 300-pound guys up front with the linebacking help they need to stop a run consistently. And you can tell, even in this game, they don't trust their corners that much. They're blitzing all the time. And a lot of times you're like, well, they're blitzing, so they trust their corners to hold up in protection. No, they feel they need to get pressure and try to get the ball out that quick because they can't cover downfield long enough. And you saw them blowing coverages left and right. Like I said, it was a clinic on Harbaugh out coaching them, especially after halftime. They were throwing to wide open people for 60-yard gains, and then they started run blitzing and just missing gap assignments. So it was over once that started happening. It was a domination hour by Michigan, and they didn't really play that hard of a schedule like we've talked about several times over text on this show. We've talked about Michigan's lack of schedule. But they did just beat the one team they needed to beat to make the playoffs, and it's going to work for them. They're going to get in because I don't see Purdue stopping them. So they're going to get in based off this one play. It's just what Ohio State does after this that really is the complex question. I mean, Michigan flipped 2 Ohio recruits at the game afterwards. Yeah. They were visiting the game to go possibly sign for Ohio State and flip to Michigan after the game. Yeah. That's embarrassing if you're an Ohio State program. That's the type of shit right there that gets boosters riled up. That's the type of shit that gets coaches on hot seats. So I'm not saying Ryan Day's going to get fired or anything. That he's a year or so off of that. He keeps losing like this, he's gone because that's a serious offense for Ohio State boosters. They don't mess around like that. I'm telling you, Ryan Day's going to have to turn this around, and I don't know if he can really. I'm telling you, I don't buy him being able to recruit defenders like this. And even though Harbaugh recruits smaller time defenders, that coaching staff, mentor and all them, they coach them up to be physical. At least they play physical and hit you. That's what you got to do on defense nowadays. I'm telling you, Ohio State's in trouble right now. And then you can go back and look at this. If they turn it around, they're in trouble, though. I'm telling you, it's a problem.
Without a doubt, it's a big, big problem. And Ryan Day is on, again, he's not going to get fired, but he's on what you like to call like the warm seat, where think about it, man. First of all, I know we've picked apart CJ Stroud, but he's a good college quarterback. Like, he's a good college quarterback. He's gone, man. But they don't have a quarterback in the wings. They had that guy coming in 2024. Then you go to Michigan next year. Who's going to be the quarterback? You can pretty much chalk that up. Michigan's bringing basically everybody back.
They got the back that just ran for 200 on him coming back. Corum will be gone. He's there. Like, I mean,
but they got MP just as good, and they've got all this offensive lineman coming back. Their defense is fine, dude. So you can pretty much chalk it right now as 3 losses in a row to Michigan. Okay, and then you're going back to Ohio State next year, and we'll see what happens from there. And the one other thing that Ryan Day's got to do, man, if you're going to lose to Michigan, you can't lose like this. Oh, yeah. That's the big thing. This is 2 years in a row where you are losing by a beatdown, by a final score of 20-plus points or more. That is what cannot happen. Ryan Day is in a crisis right now. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Let's kind of, and one point I do just that you hit on that I think is really, really, really important. The Big Ten makes Ohio State misleading because they beat up on all of these teams all throughout the season. It's misleading to their fans because when they get into a competition like this with Michigan, you're expecting so much when really we don't even know what type of program Ohio State is because they've beaten nobody. Nobody. And hopefully that will change with Matt Rhule in Nebraska and Luke Fickell and Wisconsin and everything like that. But that's another issue right there that changes everything. Let's go to another program that is also in flux right now. And listen, we say in flux in quotations. These are still programs that are winning 10, 11 games a year. But for the expectations that they have set, which is now reality, as I always say, expectation sets have become reality. Like, you're winning enough games where that's a reality now. And that's Clemson, man. Clemson is still winning 10 games a year. It's great. But Clemson has some serious issues on the offensive side of the ball, Sean. And Dabo is going to have to change everything. He's got to bring in some more, I want to say, like, equipped people on the offensive side of the ball. The guys that he has on that coaching staff are guys that don't have a lot of college experience. I looked it up. He basically just promoted a lot of guys that were already on the staff. He didn't bring anybody from outside. DJU is not getting better. They are not developing DJU. And I have a hot take here that this a lot of people think this is going to sound crazy. Sean, I truly believe that if DJU transfers, and he should transfer out of that program. He 1,000% should. And if he goes to a program like, say, Oregon, or a program like, say, Tennessee. I know they have that rookie coming in, that freshman coming in, so he probably won't do that. But a program that can actually open things up for him offensively. I think DJU might be a hell of a college quarterback. I think that the system he is in is terrible for him and for other quarterbacks that aren't just insanely elite like Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. And even the system that those quarterbacks played in is a little bit different from what they're doing now. I think offensively, Clemson has a very big issue here. They're not bringing in wide receivers like they used to bring in, top-tier NFL wide receivers. Even the defense is getting gashed now. Clemson's in a problem right now, Sean, and I don't know where they go from it. I like to believe Dabo's going to change, but I also like to believe that he's too loyal to a fault, and that might become an issue for him.
Yeah, the times are changing for Clemson, and I mean, me and you are big Clemson watchers because we kind of watch the ACC a ton. Yeah. That's just where we've lived in North Carolina for that long, stuff like that. I'm telling you what, they have an issue because they're not one or the other. If you're going to be bland schematically, you better have Marvin Harrison Jr. in them out there, like Ohio State does. That's how they score. If you're going to have weak skill position players, you better go out there and scheme them up. And that's how Mike Leach has done it his whole career. Yes. That's the type of stuff that they do. Clemson's doing neither of them, man. That's the problem. And then when they didn't do that so much, they had Trevor and Etienne back there for those 2 years. They kind of carried them. And you see Trevor and Etienne now, and as a Jags fan, watch them now. They can ball. So that's the thing. That's the problem that Dabo's having right now. If you don't have your Mike Williams, your Hopkins, your guys on the outside. You better be able to scheme them, and you don't have a guy to scheme them now. Now, his guy that left for UCF, I'm blanking his name, that got fired, or USF.
Yeah.
He may come back. That might help him out a little bit.
I think he will.
I can see that happening because right now Dabo is so loyal. He'll take his little college assistant scouting guy. Yeah. He'll take his little assistant scouting guy, bring him up through the thing. He'll coach quarterbacks, and then Tony Elliott will leave, and then that guy will do like offensive pass game stuff, and then your other coordinator will leave, and then he's the offensive coordinator after like 3 years, and he's just not ready for it. That's just the whole idea of it. And that's Dabo to a fault, not bringing in people that's not around Clemson. You get this whole family kind of mentality. I'd say the Lakers have an issue with this in the NBA. They bring in only Lakers. Yeah, you can see some Yankee stuff happening where they do that in the MLB. There's certain mom and pop type operations you look at around sports, and Clemson's one of them. And it kind of works on the college football level more because you have such a big pool to choose from. You can bring in former players and bring them up through the ranks, and eventually they do good. The problem is they don't have the talent to go with that whole idea, and one of them's got to catch up to the other. So either they got to go out and they got to get some bona fide wide receiver help right now, or they're going to have to scheme that person open. One of the two's got to happen for Clemson to get back to their glory days. Because right now, if you look at them being bad, the ACC is actually weak because as a whole, it's weak in the conference. Because if they're not making playoffs, we were talking UNC possibly getting in until they get lost. Their defense isn't close to playoff worthy. Georgia's offense struggles every now and then. Georgia might would hang 80 on them. I mean, let's be real. Then you got the other parts of it. Florida State's always up and down. They try to turn it around. Clemson's dragging the whole conference down to this point. They're gonna need to turn things around, or else they're gonna start looking like the Pac-12 did a couple years ago, and that's a scary thought if you're an ACC or a Clemson fan.
It's a great point about the ACC, and it even makes Clemson worse because of how bad the ACC is. And you're sitting here saying losing 2 games a year is bad. It kind of is when the ACC is this bad. You should be able to rupshaw through that conference. And you hit it on the nail with Dabo's got to change, because this is the problem with Dabo right now. Not only is he not bringing in more equipped guys on the offensive side of the ball, he's also not dabbing into the transfer portal because he's so damn stubborn. And that is how top-tier coaches fall off the mountain. Nick Saban was in this same issue, and he finally said, damn, you know what? I got to be humbled, and I got to change, and I got to bring in a guy like Lane Kiffin to change up my offense. And since that happened, he went on and won multiple national championships. Dabo needs to wake the hell up and realize you're not getting a DeAndre Hopkins anymore. You're not getting a Mike Williams anymore unless you go through that transfer portal. Clemson, dude, a lot of people hate on Clemson because it's like this country university in the middle of nowhere. And listen, if you've ever been around, it is literally in the middle of nowhere. Like there's nothing other than Clemson at that campus. They have some big time alumni. They have boosters that can cough up money. That is what college football is now, ladies and gentlemen. You got to pay to play on a big stage. You have to pay for your players. They've got to go into the transfer portal and get these type of guys, because you're not going to just get them straight out of high school anymore unless you're willing to go and get guys. And that's the issue that Dabo's got to change with.
And I'll tell you this, if one thing is going to make them pay attention, it's going to be losing to South Carolina, because I'm friends with a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends that are big South Carolina fans, and they go through it, man, because South Carolina is so up and down. But they live and breathe to beat Clemson. Clemson treats them like peons, man. That's just how they've done it. That's kind of how UNC treats NC State in basketball. When they lose, they get mad about it, but they expect to win that by a lot most every time. They don't expect to lose to South Carolina out there. So that kind of is going to wake them up a little bit, I think, the boosters and the fan base, because they're not used to losing to South Carolina. I think Deshaun and Trevor just destroyed them over their whole tenure there. So I don't see them taking a loss to SC very lightly like that. They're not going to like that at all. I want to actually bring this up to you because it kind of made me think about it. I actually think the reason why Bama's struggling, a lot of people say it's a talent thing and people pulling recruits. I think a big thing that's a struggle with Bama is what we're talking about with Clemson. Saban's too loyal to those two coordinators. I think Bill O'Brien and Pete Golding are both bad and both secure. And I didn't mean to like branch off into Alabama like that because we didn't even talk about that, but it just triggered in my mind because I was going to bring it up to you over text one day. The reason why Bama, not only they're losing talent, they still have talent. Not only are they losing top elite talent to other schools, Bill O'Brien's been there longer than most of these coordinators stay. Sark and Lane got hired pretty immediately. You see no one's even calling Bill O'Brien that much. So that's saying something about the offense, which is very Bryce dependent, and that's why Bryce is doing so well. But the offense struggles as a whole. And Pete Golding, I don't think I've seen a D coordinator be flamed by Alabama fans as hard as Pete Golding has.
I know.
I'm curious in the offseason if Saban doesn't change one or both his coordinator spots after this season too, because I think, like we talked about with Dabo not being able to change too much, I think the coordinator position is more important than we know. And with Bama, those two might be gone. I also want to give a shout to Elko that left Texas A&M.
Oh my God!
That kind of shows you a little bit about Jimbo there too, losing him, and then their season goes down with all that talent. Then Elko goes over to Duke. I think Elko is going to be in for a big job here in a year or two.
I'm so glad you brought Elko up, man. Not to go off on a tangent, but if you're an AD and you're not calling to see if Elko's available, you've got a problem because what he has done with Duke, who is not a very good roster. It's 8-4.
1 year turnaround, dude. That's 1 year. And like I said, I'm a UNC fan in basketball. I hate Duke in all sports. I mean, what Mike Elko did with a bad roster, not transfer portals, academic stuff, 8-4. That's a coaching job right there.
And then look at coaching job. And they could have even been better. I mean, if you think about it, UNC, they were up on UNC. UNC, with Drake May being wonderful, had to come back and beat them from behind. They could have even won some more games there. So super great job by Mike Elko. But I think you're onto something. And Sean, I think I would be shocked if Bill O'Brien's there next year. I don't think, honestly, man, even on the offensive line, I think I need to look this up. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Doug Marrone is their offensive line coach right now.
He left. He left this year.
He left this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they even have issues on their offensive line isn't what we used to see.
They're all 5-stars too, dude. They're like highly touted.
And Bryce is running for his life every play, pretty much. Yeah. So even the offensive line is different. I think you're going to see Saban make some big adjustments. I honestly think Saban's sitting over here and having his agent call schools to hire Bill O'Brien as a head coach somehow. Like some Power 5 school, please come and take Bill O'Brien away so I don't have to fire him. But I think he's going to get fired. I think Saban knows he's got to let him go. And maybe even you'll see that on the defensive side as well, because you're right. But that goes back to the point. Saban will make it happen. He'll make changes. I don't know if Dabo will, and that's what we have to watch to see. Let's move on to what my opinion is the best story in college football right now. A guy that I am in love with. Literally, I cannot take my eyes off the screen when this guy is playing. Sean, over the years, it feels like everybody tries to find a comparison, a player that is compared to Patrick Mahomes. And we see it all the time. This guy can throw the ball like Patrick Mahomes. This guy can move so well like Patrick Mahomes. Sean, I think this is the first time where you can actually say that Caleb Williams looks like a version of Patrick Mahomes, and it's not blasphemous. It's not out of control hot take. The way he plays makes you think of Patrick Mahomes. And this is the first player where I genuinely feel comfortable and I don't have to pause and say, no. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. The guy is Houdini. The guy makes things happen when plays break down. The guy flings his wrist and the ball goes super far. He throws his receivers open. He throws it right to the spot. Caleb Williams, to me, is one of the best college football quarterbacks I've ever seen. He is so fun to watch. He is a surefire #1 overall pick, and teams are going to be tanking for him like we haven't seen in the NFL, in my opinion. I am genuinely, he locked up the Heisman last week, by the way, too. The Heisman is his. With the way Stroud played and the way he played, the Heisman is now his. I know you texted me about that. I think you're spot on with that. Caleb Williams is the best player in college football right now, and I can't believe we get another year of watching him.
Yeah, so every now and then you just get players like that. And Kayvon, just for full reference, I think Kayvon's the biggest Caleb Williams fan outside of maybe Colin Cowherd on the planet.
I think so too.
So Kayvon texts me all the time about him, and I've kind of held back talking about him a lot. And the reason why is because I work very early on Sundays sometimes. So sometimes I don't get to do as much Pac-12 after dark as I'd like.
Playing at
Sometimes
10:30.
I don't get to see it as much. So this 2 weeks where me and Kayvon had some family stuff, we were just hanging out with family for Thanksgiving, and my work schedule gets busy around holidays. So we had the 2 weeks off. But I went to sit down to make sure I watched some film on Caleb Williams because Kayvon talks about him all the time. Yeah, the dude's crazy. All right. So I gotta go ahead and say what Kayvon was saying because he took the words out of my mouth a little bit. Everyone tries to compare people to Mahomes, but everyone just does it on he keeps plays alive and his arm's very strong kind of level. But if you look in the NFL, and I know some of this is going to be a college to NFL barrier thing, so bear with me. I'm going to get kind of technical. If you look in the NFL, there's different types of arm talent and arm strength, and there's different ways that people do it. Allen and Herbert have like insane arms, and they can throw off platform, but they do it kind of from a set spot, and they do it with torque. The same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, when he rolls out, he was the originator of all of it. He flicks his hips, and then his whole body makes a torque motion, and he can do it from any platform. He does it all like that. Then you have guys like Trevor Lawrence and Stafford with super strong arms too that just throw lasers, and they do it decently on the run, but it's all from the same arm slot. They all have very similar mechanics. The reason why Mahomes is so crazy is Mahomes will throw the ball with like his body turned backwards to the line of scrimmage and his arm flipped this way. And you're like, how did you even make that throw? And it's 40 yards downfield. And everybody tries to compare people to Mahomes. It's like, no, dude, that's not Mahomes. They might throw from different arm slots, but this dude is literally, his body is against the ground and he's throwing it that way. Yeah. Caleb Williams is the first person I've seen actually make throws like that. And I don't know if he makes all the throws that Mahomes makes because that's just such high praise. Yeah. He's very close, though. It's probably 95% of the throws. And maybe Mahomes' arm is just a tiny bit stronger, but he's also older. He's got the more practice. What you're saying is true. Caleb Williams is a prospect, dude. That dude is pure fucking talent out there. So I got to agree with you on that. He's going to go number one, in my opinion. I know a lot of scouts are in on Drake May because he's 6'5". I don't. That has to be an older scout out there that's still doing that. Yeah. I mean, it's not like Caleb Williams is 5 foot. He's like 5'11". He's 6'2". So he's plenty big enough. What you're saying is absolutely true, though. He won the Heisman. He's going to go number one in the draft. And he's the closest thing we've seen to the best quarterback in the NFL right now. It's going to be a tank fest, not just because if you get that, the number 2 pick is going to be Drake May, which I'm not great. Drake May at all. Drake May would go number one in this draft. I know we get a lot of conversation here. Yes. I already see people on the internet. Oh, everyone's already down on this quarterback class for next year's. No, last year's quarterback class sucked. So this year's quarterback class is better than that. Yeah. But next year's quarterback class is better than that one.
Without a doubt.
This is all that is. I gotta agree with Kayvon on this. I'm glad I finally got to sit down and watch Caleb Williams because you were texting me a lot about him, and I was like, I haven't seen him, so I don't really know. I've seen him now. He's the closest thing to Mahomes you're gonna get. We get a whole nother year of it. They're gonna have a shot at the national title if they shore up that defense a little bit next year. And I think they're gonna play well with Georgia if they play them.
Man, that's such a fun matchup.
Can get a little shaky. So I want to see that matchup real bad.
That's such a fun matchup. I'm so glad you went through in depth of why he's like Mahomes. It was so well said, and you're so right. People just throw that out there, but the way you explain it is perfect, man. And you really do see that with Caleb Williams. He also has an edge about him that I really like. You know, the only thing that will ever make me not like this guy anymore is if the Saints got him somehow, and that would ruin my life. I mean, that would genuinely ruin my life.
Some people would come back to coach if the Saints got him. I'm not lying.
I think so too. And Sean, I feel like it could happen, man. They're going to be so bad next year. They don't have a first round pick. It scares me, man. I don't even want to get into my head, but it scares me because this guy is so amazing, dude. And I want him on the Falcons really, really bad. But anyways, that's just selfish talk there. He's fun. I hope we get a Georgia USC matchup because I think it could be really fun to see what he can do against that defense. And just another thing here, man. This is now going to be Lincoln Riley's, third or fourth Heisman QB. That's getting out of control, man. If you're a QB in college and another first round pick
drafted too. He gets him drafted.
That's remarkable, man. I mean, he put this team together on scratch, pretty much on a whim. Lincoln Riley is just a coach that I don't know if you're plus now you're in Southern Cal. I don't know how you don't. Yeah, I don't know how you don't look at that and say, God, I got to go to USC. All right, let's move on to some. Should we do some playoff talk or coaches talk?
Let's do some playoff talk since we were just on that. I like that Georgia USC matchup that you're talking about. What do you think the committee's going to do tomorrow? Because I want them to move TCU up to 3 because TCU deserves it, but TCU's kind of shit on this whole time, just staying at 4. I want them to move them up to 3, and I think USC is going to go to 4. I think that should be the playoff, to be honest. As long as it holds pat, I think it should be Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and USC. Do you see any other way that doesn't happen other than losses? And then if they do lose, who do you think gets in? Because that's the big debate right now. A lot of Bama and Ohio State fans going at each other. Even see some crazy Tennessee fans out there talking about Tennessee should be in.
Yeah.
So let's say one of them loses, just one. Who do you think gets in? And if it stands pat like this, do you think that should be the 4? Because that's what I believe.
I think you're spot on. I think that should be the 4. Not only do I think that should be the 4, I think that should be the exact order too. I think you have the exact order right. I think that Georgia should be 1. I understand Michigan fans have said they think they deserve a shot at as number 1. I get that, but I think being number 2 is fine. You avoid Georgia and you get most likely TCU at 3, which I think Michigan would much rather see. No disrespect, TCU. TCU could beat Michigan, but I think they'd much rather see TCU than USC, in my opinion. I think, but Sean, I'm a little worried, man. I'm a little worried that on tomorrow night, what they're going to do is they're going to drop Ohio State from 2 to 4. And they're going to keep USC at 5. And as long as USC beats Utah, they'll then jump Ohio State in the last rankings. Because don't get me wrong, you're spot on. If USC wins next week, they are in. If TCU wins next week, they are in. If Michigan wins, they are in. Georgia, even if Georgia loses, I think Georgia's in. I think Georgia's in no matter what, unless they got stomped by LSU or something like that. I think they're in. But I could maybe see the committee not dropping Ohio State 3 spots, dropping them 2, and that way, if USC or TCU lost, they could be able to say, well, look, they were already in the top 4, because I think that's the only way. I think, in my opinion, and I'm not saying they deserve this at all, but I think Ohio State is the only team that could get in if one of these teams like TCU or USC lost. I don't see any argument for Alabama. And this is, look, do I like Alabama? No, but I'm not like an Alabama hater or anything. Guys, Alabama's best win is Ole Miss or Texas. Both teams that are ranked, that Ole Miss isn't even ranked anymore, and Texas is like 24. That is their best win on the season, guys. That's a really bad best win. At least Tennessee has a win over Alabama. USC has wins all across the board now. I cannot see how an Alabama team with their best win like that getting into the playoff. I just can't see it. At least Ohio State has a win over that soon. That's going to be a top 10 Penn State team. Whatever you think of Penn State or not, they've lost 2 games on the season, Michigan, Ohio State, and they've romped everybody else. They have that top 10 win at least. So in my opinion, the only team that has a shot to get in out of those 4 that you did not name is Ohio State. And that's if TCU or USC loses. And I don't think both will lose. Actually, I hope neither loses. But I think if one lost, I think maybe Ohio State would be the team to get in. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of either Ohio State or
Alabama. I agree.
I don't think they deserve it either way. But here's the thing. I kind of agree that it's got to be Ohio State, even though it's a super shaky argument for me after what I just saw against Michigan. The problem with Bama is their 2 losses, man, and they haven't won any great games. Bama's getting in on this brand recognition thing and what they've done in the past, where it's almost like, Clemson doesn't have a good team, but say they won out. I guess Clemson would be ahead of Alabama, but Clemson's team isn't good either. It's not like Ohio State, Bama, and Clemson have good teams this year.
No.
But they're kind of getting in on this brand recognition thing. Bama, I don't think has an argument. I know a lot of people are making it for them. Well, they barely lost on the road both times. They still lost on the road both times. Like
Yeah,
that's still
exactly.
happening. And here's the thing too. I'll give Bama the 2% argument here. I think the only way Bama gets in my opinion, and that I would be able to see the argument, because I don't see an argument other than this, would be if USC or TCU loses and LSU beats Georgia. Then I can kind of see it. Then I can say, okay, well, LSU not only, even though they were up and down, not only did they beat Bama, they just beat Georgia.
I
So
got
then
you.
that's one of your losses, and the other one is to a Tennessee team that lost Hooker during the game that they lost to.
Yeah.
But then I see your argument a little bit. That's the only way I would be able to entertain Bama making the top four right now. And if they put Ohio State at 4 on the college football playoff rankings, I know we're doing NFL in the next day or so. We're gonna have to talk about that because that's gonna be the biggest story going
Yeah,
on.
that's a joke.
People are gonna lose their fucking
I'm
minds.
just saying I could see it happen. I could totally see it happen, but I agree that's a complete joke. One more question for you before we move on. Do you believe since Tennessee lost, since Alabama has 2 losses, since Ohio State lost so bad, do you believe that there's any shot if TCU loses a close game to Kansas State, which could happen, ladies and gentlemen? Kansas State's a good team, that they could still get in?
I don't think they're going to put them in just because they've left them at 4 the whole time. I think they should though. They've been the
I
most
think so
tested
too,
team. The
man.
Big 12's good this year.
Yeah.
And they're undefeated right now. Everyone else has these 1 and 2 losses. I don't think the committee will do it though. The committee's been waiting for an opportunity to knock TCU out of this. It just hasn't happened. I'm telling you, they're going to knock them out. I believe they should be in even if they lose though.
I agree. I think if you lose a close game to a very good Kansas State team and you've got 1 loss on your resume and it's in the Big 12 championship against a team that you already beat in the regular season, you sure as hell deserve to stay in. That's my opinion. I'm totally with you on that. All right, we'll see what happens. There will be a lot more debate on this as the week comes. Let's go to the coaching carousel, and then we'll get on out of here. Obviously, Wisconsin drops a hammer on everyone and just completely does a non-Wisconsin type move and surprises everybody with one of the biggest coaching hires and the best coaching hires you can get. They lure Luke Fickell away from Cincinnati. This to me is a huge win for Wisconsin. I think it's a great job for Luke Fickell too. It makes me wonder, Sean, if Luke Fickell and Cincinnati didn't make the playoff last year, it makes me wonder if maybe Luke Fickell would have taken a job last year, like say Notre Dame or maybe LSU or something like that. I think because they made the playoff, he felt like he couldn't leave that program. And I think now he's, okay, all these guys are gone. It's a little bit of a harder time. They're going to the Big 12. I think he was like, now it's a good time to leave. And Wisconsin hit a home run with this, man. I just think that it's such a good hire by Wisconsin. This now makes them, because right now you look at the Big Ten and you say, okay, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, there's a competition until USC gets there for that 4th team and maybe even that 3rd team that can jump Penn State if you do well enough. Wisconsin just officially put themselves in that conversation with Luke Fickell.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that hire is like a go for it type thing while they still have divisions in place, because they can dominate that division until a USC UCLA gets in. They're a very clear path there. Wisconsin's a good brand. Wisconsin has always had good teams these last 20 years. They've been one of the more dominant Big Ten programs, going to Rose Bowls and stuff like that, competing for Big Ten championships. That hire by Wisconsin was big time. And I can see where Luke Fickell's coming from. Me and you talked about it last year during the hiring cycle. Luke Fickell feels like a North guy to me, like up there in the cold. That's the type of guy he is. And he goes to one of the more stable Big Ten brands that had a down year of down years for them. This has been one of their worst years in the last 20 years. So I can understand Luke Fickell going there, and it's a big gift for Wisconsin. That's the best hire anyone could have made to me, outside of maybe pulling Urban if you want to go there or something like that. This was the best guy coaching in a program that was going to be available out of the people you could pull from, and they pulled him. Completely, that's an A+ hire for Wisconsin right there. He's going to turn them around. Recruiting's going to be good, and they're going to be good competitors in the Big Ten. And I got to give credit to the Big Ten again as well. They'll have USC and UCLA coming in, but Nebraska getting Matt Rhule, that's a big get right there too. That's an A+ hire as well, because that's the best Nebraska could have done, because I thought they were going to get a lot worse. Honestly, I thought Auburn should have went after Matt Rhule and got him, But then it kind of looked like he was just going to take the time off. Nah, he goes to Nebraska.
Yep.
That's a big time thing. They're already talking about him pulling offensive coordinators from places and everything
Yep.
like that. Matt Rhule's going to have Nebraska going up there in the top 5 or 6. I talk a lot of shit about him because I don't think recruiting is going to be all that big at Nebraska. But now you have at least a coach schematically that did it at Baylor, knows what he's doing. He's going to be able to develop 3-year players, kind of how the Michigan does at a smaller level, how the Wisconsin does maybe at a slightly smaller level, and they're going to make some noise in the Big Ten. They're going to be able to play with people. I think that was an A+ hire by Nebraska as well. How'd you feel about that one?
I loved it. A+ hire for sure. I also thought Auburn should have went after him, but I actually think this is a better fit for Matt Rhule. I think this was a better choice for Matt Rhule. It makes more sense here. Well, guys, why Matt Rhule was so successful at Baylor is what he would do is he would take these good athletes or great athletes that weren't 5 4-star players, and he would go and take them and he would just develop the hell out of them. That's why he's such a good developer. He knows how to recruit in Texas, which Nebraska's going to have to go and try and get some guys out of Texas because, like you said, it's tough. It's tough getting guys out of California to come to Nebraska. It's tough getting guys out of Texas. But Matt Rhule knows how to do that, and he knows how to get guys that aren't on everybody's radar and develop them. I love, for the first time in a while, Nebraska fans can seriously take a sigh of relief and be happy. It's a huge win for the Big Ten because now you have 2 really good coaches in your program, and it's a huge win for both of those schools. Home run hire. I quickly want to talk about Cincinnati before we move on here because I actually think Cincinnati's very intriguing. I actually think Cincinnati's a good program. They're moving to the Big 12. We don't have to stay on it long because it's no disrespect, but not a lot of people want to talk about Cincinnati. I just want to throw 2 names out there. One, Deion Sanders. I know it sounds weird. I get it. Deion does not sound like Cincinnati. But if I'm Deion, I think Cincinnati's a better program than Colorado. It's an Under Armour school. I would seriously consider Cincinnati. It's going to the Big 12 if I was Deion. I don't know if Cincinnati would want Deion. The other one is going to blow your mind away, Sean. Would Urban Meyer take this job? Let me just graduate of Cincinnati. His son is already on the coaching staff. He loves Ohio. He doesn't have to leave Ohio. He loves Ohio. It's not a massive pressure-packed job. Could Urban Meyer take the Cincinnati job and just roughshot the Big 12, bro?
That would be smart of him, to be honest. That's actually very sneaky. I hadn't thought about that before because I talk about it all the time. I don't care what you say. He don't want his legacy to be what happened in
No, he will coach again.
He wants to coach again. It's just finding the spot. And here's the thing. Do you want to be at a big-time school with all that pressure? I know I threw Auburn out there a lot, and we'll get to them in a second. But to be honest, that would be a tough spot because that's just so toxic, and then you already have his personality, which people can get toxic about. Cincinnati would be home. He's beloved there. I mean, when all the stuff went down after that Thursday night game, all the people in Cincinnati was trying to protect him. It was them that was with him against the world out there on that whole situation. They would beloved it. They'd be beloved to him. The playoffs going to go to 12, so he would have kind of an easy way to get in. And then you already have the built-in excuse if you lose that, hey, I might be recruiting well at Cincinnati. We don't have the resources that the big-time schools do. So if you lose in the playoff, then all of a sudden it's a good thing. I'm telling you, the way you just laid that out, it checks a lot of boxes for Urban. I could see that happening a lot. I actually like the Deion move. If Deion would take it too, that's a good school for Deion. I don't think he should take Colorado, to be honest.
I agree.
I think that'd be a horrible decision. He needs to hold out for a job that fits him well.
Yes.
In Colorado, I just don't buy it all as a good job right now. I don't want Colorado needs to go hire one of the Lance Leipold types, even though it's not going to be him. He just signed the extension. But they need to hire one of those types, one of the up and coming coordinator types.
Yeah.
They don't need to go get a big personality like Deion. But I love that sneaky Urban Meyer Cincinnati thing. If I'm Urban, I'm thinking about that because that can turn that legacy back to where it should be. He could go in and take where Fickell left off, keep recruiting, and you're basically going to get a 12-team playoff spot by running through the Big 12, which is weaker now. I love that idea. That's a smart one on your part. I love that. Good job.
Yeah, and again, his coaches, his son is there already. He went to the school. He loves Ohio, dude. And I love the point that you made of, if he doesn't win, it's like, look, it's Cincinnati. Yet if he wins, I mean, my God, the legend. Yeah, I just took Cincinnati to the finals. I just did this. I think Urban should really consider it. I don't know if he will, but I think Cincinnati should be on the phone trying to do everything they could to get him. Because remember, Cincinnati goes into the Big 12 next year. This isn't like they wait. They're going into that with Houston and BYU very shortly. So they're going to have to get the ball rolling, and we'll see what happens there. Let's move on to the job that you just said we're about to hit on. Auburn, man. I mean, is this just so Auburn, dude? This is so Auburn. They think they're going to get Lane Kiffin. Some guy in Mississippi breaks the news that it's going to happen. Lane Kiffin completely trolls him that it's not going to happen. He turns it down. Then they go after Hugh Freeze. And because of the backlash, I mean, this is literally reported by guys like Chris Lowe and Pete Thamel, who are phenomenal at this job. They are reported that Auburn is backing out of Hugh Freeze because people are emailing them talking about how creepy and bad of a guy Hugh is and all that stuff. Did you guys not think that this was going to happen? It's freaking Hugh Freeze. It's so up to Auburn, man. This has Auburn written all over it. And as we said, Sean, I don't know if they don't go after Hugh Freeze, who the hell are they going to get? I have no idea who at this point, because Matt Rhule's gone, Luke Fickell's gone. Who are they going to get if they don't sign Hugh Freeze, which is why I think it's going to end up being Hugh Freeze. They're just going to bite the bullet, take the PR storm for a couple days, and have Hugh Freeze as their coach. But this is so typical Auburn, man.
Yeah, Auburn, number one out there on the most delusional fan bases.
Yeah,
got them moved up the ladder. They're
that has to be your number one right now.
I mean, first off, we said go hire Hugh Freeze. That's the smart decision to do.
Yes.
To be honest, I mean it's the most toxic situation. We all knew that was going to be, but it's fucking Auburn, dude.
Yes.
Of course, that's how it's going to be toxic no matter what. The boosters there are just toxic in general.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen. Just take the backlash and hire him. I don't know why Auburn fans are all over that. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to get that's better? Dillingham just went to Arizona State. That's
exactly.
a great hire by Arizona State. Made Bo Nix look good. Your old quarterback, Bo Nix. He was out there looking great. I mean, who are you going to get if you're Auburn? Honestly, name off some names that Auburn boosters right now in their mind are like, yep, we're not going to be Hugh. We're going to go get who? Because it's not Lane. Lane turned them down. So who's it going to be?
Exactly. The fans right now, their fans right now are throwing around James Franklin. James Franklin's not going to Auburn. He just
It's like we said in the last one. They talk. These Auburn fans are like, yeah, Ryan Day. No, they're going to get Ryan Reynolds. That's who they're going to. Like I said, they're not going to get anybody important. Yeah, James Franklin. You mean James Franco? That's who you're hiring. You're hiring James Franco. You ain't hiring James Franklin. Who is Auburn hiring? They blow my mind, man. They are the new Tennessee, dude. Congrats to Tennessee for getting out of this mess, because this used to be y'all every year. Auburn, you have taken. Oh my God, James Franklin. Oh, I know. These Auburn fans, man, y'all kill me. Go hire Hugh Freeze to take the PR hit. That's going to blow up in 2 years, by the way, but it's going to be magical to watch. They'll be fun to watch on offense.
It will be.
That's going to blow up. Some off the field shit's going to happen with them. Him or the boosters might get into a three-way fist fight. Like, something's going to happen, but at least they'll be fun to watch. Go hire Hugh Freeze, because you're not getting any better at this point, James Franklin.
Oh. That was podcast royalty segment right there, dude. Well done. Well done. That was awesome. You're right though, man. What else is there? There is nobody else. I mean, I don't even need to say anymore because you just nailed it on the head. But what else could they do, man? I mean, I'm serious. It's so funny. James Franklin is seriously the Twitter rumor right now. James Franklin just won 10 games. Blew out every single team except Michigan, Ohio State, and he's got a phenomenal recruiting class coming in.
Quarterback.
Why? Yeah. Why the hell would he go to Auburn? They need to do what you just said. Bite the bullet. Hire Hugh Freeze. You didn't get your number one guy in Lane Kiffin. Okay, cry about it and move on. Hugh Freeze was always supposedly your number two. Go get him. Just bite the bullet, because right now, I don't see anybody else going to Auburn. I just don't see it unless they pull a rabbit out of their hat, which I can't even think of a name that would be to do that. I don't know who else. You're going to go back and get Gus Malzahn? what are you going to do here? Like, so I'm totally with you, man. I don't know what else we can say about it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I can't wait to see this hire. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, you got me fired up for the Auburn offseason now.
Three-way fist fights going on in 2 years with you freaks at the that was so funny. All right. Any other jobs you want to hit on before we get on out of here, bro?
No, I think we're good. We'll talk about more of that in the off season when more jobs come available and stuff like that happens. But yeah, that's great. I can't wait to see that. Can't wait to see that with Ohio State fans too. If you're a fan of any of these schools, by the way, let us know how you're feeling.
Yeah.
We're back. Like I said, holiday season's rough for me at work the week before, and then obviously the week off is family time. So we're back in it. We're going to be on the NFL tomorrow. My Jags big win yesterday. We're going to be talking about Trevor Lawrence. We'll talk
best
some of
game,
that.
best game of his NFL career. Best.
Oh, yeah,
he was in that fourth quarter, dude. He was so good.
We'll talk some McCavon with the Falcons, how they're still not out of it somehow, even after that game they played. But the Buccaneers are just as bad. So, I mean, we'll talk. We'll cover all of it. We'll be all over the NFL tomorrow too.
We'll break
so
it down. We'll also, like Sean mentioned earlier, we also will totally talk about the college football rankings and what they do when they come out. We'll be all over championship weekend. We'll give our picks, and then we'll be all over the Final Four. And Mike White and the Jets, Zach Wilson. Who have you heard on this show, by the way, all year long talking about Zach Wilson and how they should have taken Justin Fields? We both have said that. So stay tuned. We're back on a routine now. We're back on a schedule. Like I said, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the show. Comment. Let us know your thoughts on what we're saying. You know, if you're an Auburn fan out there and you want to rip Sean for what he just said, please do it because that's amazing. But I don't really know how you could have a comeback because, like he said, he is just speaking the truth. But let us know your thoughts. I really, like Sean said, I really want to hear from Ohio State fans, man, because they are freaking out right now, and I want to hear what you guys feel like is going to happen moving forward. So let us know. We'll talk more, and we will be back tomorrow to break down everything going on in the NFL world. You can follow Sean on Twitter at DumpsterFireFan, myself at Kayvon_sports, and we will talk to you tomorrow.